Good morning and welcome. I'm Julio Malera, President and CEO of the Business Report, and on behalf of our sponsors, Fishman Haygood, Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge, LWCC, Iberia Bank, and WFB, we'd like to welcome you to this special virtual presentation honoring the Capital Region's top 100 private companies and their contributions to our economy, and also to hear what is in store for our region in the next 12 to 24 months. As we all know, 2020 has been a heck of a year. We have a storm to our east this morning, COVID-19 storm, political storms, all sorts of storms. But regardless of the storms that we're all facing in our businesses, we know resiliency is the key. Resilience is especially important today because the business environment is becoming more dynamic and unpredictable. And you will see in a few minutes the majority of our top 100 privately held companies lead by a growth mindset that balance offensive actions like improving efficiencies and seizing new opportunities with defensive tactics of cutting back costs to prepare for the worst. Now, before we dive into some numbers, check out a message from our sponsors.
LWCC is Louisiana loyal, a mantra that drives us to be a catalyst elevating Louisiana's position in America. However, elevating this great state is not something we can do alone. There is already so much impressive work being done. We have so much to be proud of. LWCC celebrates champions of Louisiana, those relentlessly committed to making our state a better place to work and live. Two of our three original champions, Simone Malaz and Trey Godfrey, lead extraordinary nonprofits, making a significant impact in Louisiana. Restore or Retreat is a coastal restoration advocacy group working tirelessly to ensure our vital coastline continues to be an asset for decades to come. 100 Black Men of Baton Rouge builds community by enhancing the lives of African American youth through mentoring, educational and financial literacy programs, and teaching life and leadership skills. Join us in celebrating these champions of Louisiana and showing the rest of the country the best of our state. Learn more at louisianaloyal.com.
Community service is a huge part of WAFB, and we know the nonprofits that serve our area are facing challenges. Many are trying to balance an increased demand on the services and support they provide while trying to find new ways to raise funds. Here at WAFB, we're in a unique position to really bring awareness to a cause and make a huge impact. Currently, for Hunger Action Month, we're partnered with the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank for a virtual Food for Fall drive to help stock their shelves as we move into fall.
It's really to help raise awareness, but also raise funds to allow us to bridge the gap through the rest of the year. And it's going to be at levels that we've not seen, levels of response, level of assistance.
So if you're in a position to help, reach out to your favorite community partners and nonprofits. And together, we can continue to make a real difference.
Welcome back. This morning, before we get into our main presentation, I want to take just a few moments and share with you the economic impact that our top 100 privately held companies have on our community and our region. I want to start off with this first slide. They have impacted our economy to the tune of $25.711 billion and change, up from $23.973 billion and change the previous year. That means that our top 100 companies overall grew 7.25% over the last year, which is remarkable. Next, I want you to check out the top 10 companies on the top 100 private companies list. You see at the top, we have Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana at a little bit over $4 billion, Turner Industries at $3.1 billion, Raising Cane's, One Love, One Chicken Finger at a time, right, at $1.5 billion. Performance Contractors, $1.27 billion. Brown and Root Industrial Services at a little bit over $1 billion. MMR Group, $752 million. Dream Motor Group, which owns the Mercedes-Benz dealerships, $696 million. Associated Grocers, $673 million. The Exxon Group, $635 million. In the Neutron Group, $543 million. It's a significant impact that these 10 organizations have on our economy. Check out this next slide. Out of the top 100 companies, 65 of them increased their revenues this past year. 2 of them were flat, and 33 realized some type of slight decline. But check this out. 15 out of the 100 top privately held companies grew over 25% over the last year or higher. And lastly, I want you to check out where they're headquartered. This is interesting. 79 of the companies are headquartered right here in EBR, 12 in Ascension Parish, 5 in West Baton Rouge Parish, 3 in Livingston Parish, and 1 in Iberville Parish. And finally, I thought I would mention that there are 12 new companies that made the list this year that were not on the list last year, which means 12 were knocked out, and which reminds all of us, you can't take your eyes off the ball. You better not take your eyes off your customers or your business. In a minute, we have a special segment that we've integrated this year into this presentation. We're going to visit with Art Favre, the CEO of Performance Contractors, with over $1 billion in revenue, over 7,000 employees. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Congratulations to this year's Top 100 Private Companies. We are grateful for your commitment to our community, and we're honored to join you in that mission.
At Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge, we believe in the future, and we're committed to help build it.
We believe education is a pillar for the future, so we became one of the founding members of Dream Teachers in 2007. It's an organization that elevates and recognizes outstanding educators in the state of Louisiana.
Gwen has served on the Dream Teachers board for the past 8 years. We are very proud of the work they do year after year to celebrate our very deserving educators.
Let me tell you, it's an incredible feeling to hand over the keys of a brand new Mercedes-Benz to the Louisiana State Teacher of the Year. We're so grateful that we have been able to give back in a unique and meaningful way.
Thank you for joining us in our mission to help our community fulfill their dreams, and congratulations from all of us at Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge.
Well, welcome back, and we're extremely fortunate this morning to have Art Favre, the CEO of Performance Contractors, join us this morning. Welcome, Art.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you here, and I know Loren's going to have a lot to say, probably both the good, the bad, and the ugly a little bit later on, but we're so honored to have you here, and I put together a couple of questions that we'd like to hear straight from the Chief Executive Officer of Performance Contractors. And so let me start off with this. You guys did over $1 billion in revenue this past year. Much of the work was out of state. And so I was going to ask you first, what are you seeing as far as work demand in other states compared to Louisiana right now?
Well, frankly, Julio, there are several areas across the country that are really outperforming the Louisiana economy currently. In fact, there's some recent data that shows that Louisiana is actually the poorest performing state in the southeastern United States, as measured by the number of hours that have been worked. And using a baseline of January of 2020, just to give you some examples, Louisiana in April when we bottomed out, we were at a minus 60% of the number of hours we worked in January. And currently here in the 1st of September, we're still at a minus 32%. And those numbers are the lowest in the Southeast right now. This situation was true prior to the pandemic, and it has only gotten more evident during the extended shutdowns that we've had here in Louisiana. Our company, quite honestly, has been very blessed to have more of a nationwide basis, and that activity has allowed us to weather the impacts of the pandemic much more than some of our fellow contractors that are tied strictly to the Louisiana economy. Most of our work in Louisiana is obviously oil and gas based and of course chemicals, but outside the state we have more of a diverse background of clients. We're more into the power and specialty chemicals and even automotive and other areas.
So let me ask you this, with that in mind. Obviously, you guys have done a great job of diversifying nationwide. What are your expectations for Performance Contractors in 2021 and moving forward for you guys?
Well, I kind of wish you hadn't asked that question, but quite honestly, in all honesty, we started 2020 with enough backlog to set a company record in sales in 2020. But by June, due to project delays and cancellations, indefinite postponements, our forecast went from record setting to mediocre at best. So we've basically been scrambling since the pandemic set in to kind of overcome some of those losses and to backfill that backlog. And it's been kind of tough because the economy is not that good. The markets are very tight, very competitive. And so we've had to reach out, look all over the country to try to do some backfill. We've been somewhat successful, but we still have a ways to go. And quite honestly, with most of our work in Louisiana being oil and gas related, it makes it really tough here locally. The out of state, we think it's going to be better in terms of being able to pick up work, but our outlook for 2021 is not very bright. It could be one of our slowest years in the last decade.
Well, let me ask you this: the pandemic, what's happening in the oil prices and gas prices, are there any other issues above that are impacting jobs and the activity in Louisiana besides those that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I think so. Quite honestly, the legal climate in Louisiana, we feel, is a major deterrent for economic development in Louisiana. Tort reform, quite honestly, is a very big deal. We made some great inroads in that in the last legislative session, but there's still a whole lot more that needs to be done in that arena. If Louisiana truly expects to compete with our neighboring states for major capital investments. And the other thing I would say is our state transportation system is woefully lacking and needs a lot of attention to be fixed. But you know, those two areas can be fixed if the will of the people will let their elected officials know that that's important to them, and those officials take action to improve them. And I think if they do that, lots of things will start falling in place.
You know, as I've talked to other CEOs like yourself, I hear the same echo of the level of frustration with those 2 points. But I'm always reminded that, you know, while we have a lot of challenges, you got to nail one at a time, right? And so I want to ask you if there was one thing you could change about Louisiana or the climate, what would it be?
Well, for me right now, and I've been here for a long time, but I'd have to say it would be tort reform. Quite honestly, I feel that a fair and equitable legal climate will really, if we get that done, most of the other issues will improve almost automatically. So that we've got to stop driving jobs away from Louisiana and our people out of the state. We have offices in multiple states around the country, and Louisiana is by far the most difficult state to conduct business in, and we've just got to improve that. But I will say, we still have the best food in the country.
I agree with you there. And so let me ask you this. We have a pretty big audience of business people that are engaged in the community. What's one or two things that you would like to encourage them to do to get involved in battling things like tort reform? Just
well,
off the cuff.
I think involvement is the key word there. So many people I find are complacent or just don't seem to care about what's really going on in government. And government really does matter. And government is the people. Yeah. You know, we elect people. That's our constitutional right, to elect people to represent us, to make laws that we all want to abide by. And if we don't go vote, and if we don't elect the right people to represent our feelings about how our state or our government, federal government, should be run, then shame on us. We're not living up to our constitutional right, and you can't complain if you don't go vote, is my feeling.
I think you're right about that. I want to shift gears here on you before we run out of time. There was something, you guys just celebrated your 40th anniversary. And I know that we did a piece on you guys, and I want to quote you for a moment here. Here's what you said when you marked your 40th anniversary. You said, "Performance is still a young company that is just getting started. We have a bevy of young talent poised to assume the roles of the next generation of leaders." What advice would you have for others in preparing for the next generation of leaders?
That's actually a very simple one for me, I think. You know, no matter what business sector you're in, a company is only as good as the people that they have working with them. And so my advice is to invest heavily in upgrade training, education of any type, continuing education, management training, whatever it may be, to organically grow your company, mainly your company culture from within. And if you do that, that investment in your people will pay dividends for many, many years to come.
Well, Art, thank you so much for joining us today. You've heard it straight from one of our top CEOs. Thank you for everything that you and the Performance Contractors does for our community and our state, providing jobs, your philanthropy, and everything else. You guys are having a tremendous impact, and thank you for sharing your wisdom today.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for all y'all do at Business Report.
Thank you. So stay tuned. We're ready for showtime, Dr. Loren Scott, when we get right back. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Charles Landry, the law firm Fishman Haygood. 2020 has certainly been another year to test the resiliency of Louisiana. But I've lived and worked in Louisiana long enough to know one simple fact. When faced with tough situations, our community unifies and works together. We can't control when this virus will stop whipsawing us or when our economy will be fully rebuilt. But what we can do is practice the core values that make our community strong: respect, courage, fairness, and most importantly, generosity. The water campus is a prime example. Phase 1 is completed, and it will ultimately have space dedicated to collaborative coastal science and applied research. Scientists and engineers are gathering today on one campus to help solve the problems of our shifting coastlines so we can preserve how we live and work. At Fishman Haygood, we look forward to being right here with you to help make Louisiana an exceptional place to work and live.
Hi, I'm John Everett, Baton Rouge President for Iberia Bank. As you may have heard, we've reached a major milestone. 2 relationship-driven banks, both leaders in the industry, have joined forces. Iberia Bank and First Horizon are now one company. Together, we will deliver better technology, broader lending capabilities, and an expanded financial network powered by our local team that you know and trust. During times like these, we recognize the importance of working together to remain a resilient community. Together, we can support each other to meet our common goal of keeping the greater Baton Rouge area a thriving community that we all know and love. We recognize the value that small businesses bring to our community, and I encourage you to support them the best way you can. It's important to our local economy and to our state, but now, more than ever, it's important for all of us together to remain strong through this economic time. Thank you for your ongoing trust. We look forward to continuing to serve you and being better together.
Welcome back. At the conclusion of Dr. Scott's economic forecast, we have a special gift for everybody who registered today or is a Business Report insider, so I want you to stay tuned as soon as his presentation is over. So while our speaker needs no introduction, he always insists on one. No, I'm just kidding. For those of you that are not aware, Dr. Scott is the president of Dr. Loren Scott & Associates, an economic consulting firm whose clients include national and international firms. He is one of 52-member National Business Economic Issues Council, which meets quarterly to discuss issues of state, national, and international interests. This group has experts who cover international trade, Washington economic policy, retail, trade, trucking, steel, and chemicals. He's been appointed to the Economic Advisory Board of the U.S. Council on Competitiveness, a group made up of CEOs of Fortune 100 companies, top university presidents, and presidents of 3 major unions. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Loren Scott. Dr. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Julio. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you very much. I want to start out today by thanking Julio and Rolf, they're 2 of my favorite entrepreneurs, for the development of the business reports and all the activities around it. It's been a great addition to our community. And I want to thank our sponsors of this particular event for making this possible. It's great. I know we have a lot of people watching today, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that our sponsors put up this money. I want to make 2 other announcements before we get into this. First of all, because of budgetary issues, this is the first time in 40 years that we have not been able to get direct financial support from LSU to support the Louisiana Economic Outlook, so we had to go out and get underwriters. And today, we wouldn't be having this meeting. We wouldn't have the outlook for the first time in 40 years had it not been for these folks. And so I want you to take a moment just to look at these folks, Blue Cross, Blue Shield especially, and CLECO, who are our platinum sponsors, DC Home Bank, ISC, Entergy, Shell, and Gallagher, and then Exxon Mobil, who's been our silver sponsor for years and years. We just could not have done this without them. We're very grateful for their support this year. Also, you may remember that last year we added a co-author to the Louisiana Economic Outlook, and I promised him that I would show recognition to him today. And so as you can see here, I'm doing that. And I'm sorry, I'm just kidding, Greg. His name is Greg Upton, Dr. Greg Upton, who is the Associate Professor of Research at LSU Center for Energy Studies, and he's been a great addition to the team. He's a very knowledgeable person in the energy sector, one of the most knowledgeable in the state. He has also done a lot to increase the quality of the content and also the look of the Leo this year. So I want to thank him. He's also responsible for any errors that are remaining in the report this year. That's one of the nice things about having a co-author. I thought you would appreciate this picture here. I think this picture pretty much summarizes what it's like for us in this shut-in environment. You know, we're just like, we're begging the dog to let us be the one to take him out. And I don't know about you, but I can't believe it's September. Can you believe how fast time has passed? Matter of fact, it seems like March was only about 16 years ago. Finally. Now, let's start getting into the meat of the report today. And what I want to do is spend some time talking about the impact of COVID on the economy. And I want to start with this slide, which talks about the impact on the national economy. As you can see here, the economy started to slide in the first quarter, and then on the second quarter of 2020. Real gross domestic product, the basic measure of the output of goods and services in our economy, fell by 31.7%. Now, the Bureau of Economic Analysis has been collecting data on real gross domestic product now quarterly for 73 years. That's about 300 quarters worth of data. This is the worst quarter ever since they began to collect that. As a matter of fact, the worst quarter before this was back in 1958 when real gross domestic product fell about 10%. This is more than 3 times worse than this. So this was really a huge hit to the economy. Then what I thought I would show you here is what the impact was in the worst month, the month of April, the first month of which we were totally shut in. You recall in March we were only shut in for about half the month. And what you first of all want to focus in on was that very top number there. Real gross, non-farm employment in the state fell about 272,000, a drop of about 14%. You'll notice that our unemployment rate had jumped to about 14.5%, which is not that much different from the national economy, about 14.7%. But then what you can do is you can look down at the different industries in the state and see which industries got hit the hardest. And I'm sure it's not surprising to you to learn that the hardest hit was the leisure and the hospitality area. This is the area that includes the tourism business, the restaurant business, the hotel business, and importantly for Louisiana, our casino business. The casinos employ about 16,000 people in our state. The casinos and racinos together, that's the racetrack, horse racetracks, about 16,000 people. They were totally shut down from the middle of March to the middle of June. That's a lot of people to be thrown out of work. So it probably doesn't surprise you this was the hardest hit. That's one of the weirdest things about this downturn. Historically, it's not the service sector. The service sector typically holds us up during a downturn. This is the first downturn I'm aware of that was driven mainly by what was happening in the service sector. And then if you look at the sector right under that box, the other services sector, you'll notice it also got hit pretty hard. This is where your beauty parlors are. This is where your barbershops are, your repair shops, which are all closed during that time period. One of the real surprises to me is the area right above the box, and that is in the healthcare area. I thought to myself going into this, hey, this is a crisis in a healthcare area. This ought to be great for the healthcare industry. It was precisely the opposite of that. Because what happened, as you know, a lot of the clinics were shut down, doctors' offices were shut down, people canceled elective surgery. They were afraid to go to clinics. And this was a sector that actually got hit pretty hard by this downturn. The other sector that got hit really hard, especially in our state, is the one where Art Favre works, and that is in the construction sector. The construction sector, as you can see, was down 17% versus 14% for the state as a whole. And there are three primary reasons for that. One is what I call the displaced contractor effect. If you go to the Exxon refinery just north of town here, what you'll discover is it takes about 3,500 people to run that refinery every day. And that's a lot of folks. What may surprise you to learn is that only about 1,500 or so of those are people who wear an Exxon Mobil shirt. The rest of them wear shirts that say Performance Contractors, Turner Industries, etc. There are a lot of contractors. The biggest part of their workforce is contractors. And one of the first things that they did, this is a refinery. Look what happened to gasoline production in the United States in just a 3-week time period. A drop of 42%. Just hammered this sector. And one of the things, especially that the refineries did in response to this, was not to let go of the people that had on Exxon Mobil shirts. They let the contractors go home. And they tried to handle all the maintenance and repair stuff as best they could with the people that were wearing their shirts. And so you had this happening all across your chemical sector and your refinery sector in the state. And so the good news is partly that has come back. And by the way, notice in this chart that the gasoline production has come back. It has not come back all the way. It's still down about 7.2%, but it's still down. So in addition to that, as was mentioned in the interview with Art, another thing that happened, there was kind of combined two things that happened on the construction side, and that was there were a lot of projects, as we talked about last year, that we thought they were going to pull the trigger. They were going to make a final investment decision this year and start up their construction. Many of those were delayed into 2021 or 2022. In addition to that, a number of projects that were already underway here were either totally really slowed down, as Art mentioned, but also some of them were totally stopped. And I'll show you some examples of those in our area here. And then a third thing that happened was in the turnaround areas. We have a lot of chemical plants, we have a lot of refineries in our state, and every once in a while they totally shut down their facility and they do major repair work. Well, they did not do that this year. They kept going. They decided to postpone that turnaround work until next year. That's going to be very important as we think about what's going to happen in 2021 and 2022 in our sector, the construction side. This is particularly important, as you can see here, for the Baton Rouge, the Lake Charles, and the New Orleans area. This is not very big a matter for the central northern part of the state or for the oil patch, but it's very important for these three metropolitan areas. Now, the other area which went down more than average was the mining sector. This is where oil and gas extraction is. The oil and gas extraction sector, as you'll see in a moment, has not done very well, and this is one of the primary reasons. Back in January, the price of oil was $60 a barrel, and as you can see, it fell all the way down into the 20s. And of course, we know what happens in Louisiana when that occurs. The oil and gas sector starts shutting down. You'll notice in I think it's the orange box or the red box, we had one day in which the price of oil was actually negative. I think it was a negative $38 a barrel for one day. And that was strictly because of some contractual issues, and that only happened for one day. Now, the good news is the price of oil has come back a bit. It is now kind of ranging around between $38 a barrel, which is about where it is today, and about $42 a barrel. It's kind of level off there, and there's some peculiar things happening in this industry that's going to affect the price of oil. We need to be very carefully watching over the next couple of years, and this is talked about in the actual Louisiana Economic Outlook report. This is a picture of the price of oil from 1980 through our forecast for 2020, and I taught forecasting at LSU for 30 years to MBAs, executive MBAs, and I kept telling them this is the second most difficult thing in the economy to forecast. And the reason for that is that about 2/3 of the oil reserves in the world are under the lands of countries where the government's running the country, not the profit system, the government. And you never know what they're going to do. As a matter of fact, that big drop that occurred in 2014 and 2015 you see on the screen there was primarily because one country, the Saudis, decided to turn on the taps, punch a bunch of oil on the market. It's very difficult to forecast this. Now, our forecasts for the next 2 years are that the price of oil will average about 40 this year, about 45 next year, and about 49 in 2022. Those are not good numbers to be sharing with the people in Houma and Lafayette, I'll tell you, because the Gulf of Mexico needs numbers like in the 55 range to really get going again. Our primary reason for this is because, number one, there's just a lot of uncertainty around this. What we did is we looked at the futures market. This is where people are putting millions of dollars on the line buying these contracts, and they are basically saying this is the pattern the price of oil is going to follow. The Energy Information Administration also thinks it's going to go like that, and so we went along with that, and that's the basis on which we made our forecast for the state. But you need to know that as you can tell from the ranges we have on this chart, that it could vary, the price of oil could very easily do way better than this from our standpoint. It could get much higher. It could also go much lower. There's all kinds of things that cause this to happen. It's a very difficult thing to forecast. We are not happy showing this to you because this is not going to be something that's really going to help pull Lafayette and Houma out. Now, the next thing I want to show you is how much have we improved. This is really important. So what I'm showing you here in the first column there is what I showed you earlier. This is what the job drop was like by industry in April, the worst month. And then what has happened in the latest month for which we have data, and that's the month of July. And that last column shows you how much we've improved, how much of those jobs we've gotten back. So if you look at that kind of top line there, you can see we started out losing almost 272,000 jobs. We've gotten back 49% of those jobs. Now I want you to take that number, 49%, stick it in the back of your head and remember it for just a minute. We're going to come back to it in a moment. And then if you look down the column, you can see how the recovery hit different sectors of the economy. It was very different depending on what sector you were in. So if you look at the mining sector, this is again where oil and gas extraction is. The mining sector actually got worse during this time period. They did not have an improvement in jobs. Theirs actually went down. And the other sector that actually went down was local governments. You know, local governments have to operate on a balanced budget. And they've had problems with sales tax collections, especially during this time period. And as a result, they have been cutting back on employment. The other two sectors that did not perform very well, one of them you might be again surprised about, was the healthcare sector. The healthcare sector has not come back. People are still somewhat afraid to go to hospitals and clinics. They're still postponing elective surgery. The hospital and the healthcare sector has just not come back as fast as the rest of the economy. And the other sector that hasn't come back as much is the professional and business services sector. This is where the engineers are, this is where the attorneys are, this is where the accountants are, a lot of them associated with that construction sector, which has been a problematic sector, as we mentioned before. Now, I thought I would also show you this. What has been the sector that has done absolutely the best? And the one that has done absolutely the best has been state government. State government has not only gotten back all the jobs that it's lost, but almost more than that. It was the sector that's gained all of its jobs back plus some. And they got a raise. I'm going to just leave that for you to think about in your head as you look up the chart to the other sectors of the economy and what was going on there. Now, I thought I would also show you what the breakdown was by metropolitan area. And you can see here again that top number is the total number, that 272,000 drop. Not surprisingly, the metropolitan area that got hit the hardest was the New Orleans area. New Orleans area is one of the bigger casino markets. It's not the biggest, but it's one of the big casino markets. It's also the one that's heavily convention and tourism oriented. And it's also got a lot of work that Art Farb does, a lot of construction work in that area, and these sectors just got hammered during this time period. In percentage terms, the hardest hit sector was actually, the hardest hit metropolitan area was actually Lake Charles. Now, Lake Charles is the largest casino market in the state. 5,400 people work in their 3 casinos and 1 racino in their area. There's also a lot of industrial construction that goes on in that area, as we talked about in previous reports. So it got hit pretty hardly. If you look at where we are today, if you look at the Baton Rouge area actually has done pretty well. We've gotten back, we were hit by about 13% versus 14%, despite the fact that we have casinos here. We have 3 casinos here. We have a lot of construction employment here, but we also have state government here. And that state government sector is one of the things that kept Baton Rouge from getting hit as hard as some of these other areas. Now you want to say, what has been in the improvement by metropolitan area? Again, as you can see in Baton Rouge, the state as a whole, again, there's that 49% number. Baton Rouge has actually gotten back 51% of their jobs. And I think, again, that's primarily because this is where state government is housed. This is where the state capital is and all the agencies. And that was a sector where employment actually not only rebounded, but rebounded quite a lot. If you look down a little bit there, I don't think I have this marked on this chart, but look down at Monroe. Monroe is one of those economies that's gotten back almost all of its losses. Some of the tougher areas, Lake Charles, the oil patch, not doing quite as well as some other areas going along. So these are tough numbers to look at. These are hard numbers to look at. And in the face of all this stuff, we also had to do homeschooling. And as you well know, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes an entire distillery to homeschool one. This is hard work. Now, one of the interesting things is in homeschooling, they've learned a way to teach fractions, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and 1. I think this was a kind of a cool way of trying to figure this out. I think there's been a whole lot more alcohol flowing since homeschooling started in this area. Now, when it comes to forecasting, we have really 2 separate things we have to do. We have to try to figure out, first of all, what's going to happen the rest of this year, 2020 H2, if you like. So we have to figure that out. Then we have to figure out what we think is going to happen in 21 and 22. Now, thinking about what's going to happen just the rest of this year, there are 2 huge uncertainties. This has been the toughest forecasting market we've ever had to deal with. Because of the uncertainties involved. We've never been through a pandemic like this before, and there are 2 key uncertainties here we're having to deal with. One of those is the vaccine. There's a whole section in the report that talks about how hard they're working on a vaccine, how much money has been thrown at this thing like nothing we've ever experienced before. We need to hope that they're throwing a lot of money at it, because if you look at how long it took, the shortest time period it took to solve the last corona problem we had, which was the mumps, it took 4 years to get a vaccine back then. But that was a long time ago, and a whole lot less money was being thrown at it. Science was a whole lot different than it is today. So we're very hopeful that maybe we'll get one by sometime the latter part of this year or the first quarter of next year. The other big thing is the presidential election. This is a presidential election that's going to radically impact Louisiana, depending on which way it goes. Presidential candidate Biden has said that if he is elected, there will be no more permitting in federal waters. If there's no more permitting in federal waters, then you're not going to have Houma. Houma might as well close their doors. Port Fourchon might as well close up, because that's just going to end things in the Gulf of Mexico. That's going to be very bad for us. I have a lot of other reasons why I would suggest that this is a very important election, but just let me mention that one thing in particular. Now, when you look at the next 2 years, we'll look at not the next 2 years, but the output for the outlook in Louisiana for the next, the rest of this year, the second half of 2020. We had to try to figure out how fast are we going to recover. And so what we thought we would do is we'd look at what the forecasters are saying the recovery is going to be like at the national level. And you see 2 different forecasts here, one from Wells Fargo, and the other is from Consensus Forecast USA. And Consensus Forecast USA is made up of about 26 different forecasting firms in the country, and what the average is of those forecasting firms. And so what we did, using the scriptures, in the book of Proverbs, there are several scriptures in the book of Proverbs about using counselors. And the basic idea is the more counselors you got, the wiser you're going to be. So we ended up using this column right here, and we look at what they say is going to happen in the 3rd and 4th quarter of 2020. If you do the math on this, basically what they're saying is by the end of this year, the national economy would have gotten back 72% of what the loss was from the coronavirus, about 72%. So we applied that to employment in Louisiana. We think that we said we're going to use the model that says the state is going to get back 72% of its jobs by the end of this year. Do you remember the number I told you to remember? And that was the 49%. We've already gotten back 49% of our jobs. Well, we're building our forecast on the idea that by the end of this year, we've gotten back 72% of that. And if you apply that to the Baton Rouge economy, this is a picture of employment in the Baton Rouge economy from 1980 through our forecast through 2020. And you can see that last line there. That last line is down about 5.3%, which is about almost 22,000 jobs. And as it turns out, this would be the worst downturn that the state of Louisiana, that the Baton Rouge metropolitan area has experienced in the last 40 years in percentage terms. Now, if you look back in the early 80s, that was one of our other bad time periods, but that downturn occurred over 6 years. This one occurred over 6 months. So this was a hard hit to our area. Now, if you look at the state as a whole, this again is you see all the different recessions that we've been through in the state as a whole. This was also a hard one, down about 5.3% for the state as a whole, and over 100,000 jobs, as you can see, on the average for the year. So this has been uglier. This has been uglier than a train wreck, as it turns out. As a matter of fact, I think this is a pretty good picture that explains what 2020 has been like, don't you think? This is what our slide has been like for this year. Now, by the way, there's been a recent household survey conducted about the impacts of the COVID and homeschooling and that sort of thing. And basically this one said, are you drinking more while on lockdown? And this was one of the responses. I thought you would appreciate that. Now, what is the outlook for the next 2 years? As we look at 21 and 22, we base our forecast here again on what the consensus forecast looks like for 2021, and then we came up with our own forecast of real gross domestic product growth for 2022. Basically, what the forecasters are saying is this recovery is not going to be a V. It's going to be more of a Nike swoosh. You know that swoosh on those tennis shoes? It goes down, but it doesn't come back up. It kind of goes off like this. And basically what they're saying is it'll take till late 2021 or early 22 for the national economy to get back to where it was before the coronavirus hit. And so we kind of use those numbers to apply to Louisiana, except we made some adjustments based on our oil price forecast. Remember that oil price forecast was not particularly good for certain areas of the state, and that's going to cause us to not grow quite as fast as the national economy does. When you look at the Baton Rouge area, what we think is going to be the key thing here is the recovery of a lot of jobs that were lost simply because of the coronavirus. The restaurants coming back, hopefully the hotels coming back, the service sector coming back, et cetera, back to what is normal. But in addition to that, the primary driver we think will occur for our area is the construction side, driven primarily by about $6.2 billion in projects out there that still have not done, again, what we call an FID, a final investment decision. If you look at the projects that are underway right now, you can see that there's about, $4.2 billion that are already underway in our state, in our metropolitan area. You'll notice that I put 2 in purple here, and these are ones clearly impacted by the COVID virus. And the biggest of those is the Methanex 3 project down in Gonzales area. That project is a project to produce more methanol. If you read through the Louisiana Economic Outlook, there are a lot of potential methanol projects all across the state. Virtually every one of them has been put on hold because of how bad the methanol market is right now. And this is a project that's been put on what we call a strong pause. It's just been totally stopped. The Exxon Mobil project here just north of Baton Rouge is one where, as Art talked about projects being slowed down. This is one that has been slowed down, and it's not moving as fast towards a finish as we had earlier thought. Now, over here we have a list of about $6.2 billion in projects that have been announced but have not pulled the trigger yet. And again, you'll notice that some of these are put in purple. And part of the reason for that is those are ones we specifically know that were delayed, that might have started up this year, but were delayed into 21 or 22. The top one on this list is the Shell Chemical Project, a very big $1.2 billion project. My understanding is that has been postponed for anywhere from 18 to 24 months. So it may not start up until 2022. You'll notice another one down there, the Nutrient, also, as I understand, been postponed for quite a while. But, and also there are two there called Air Liquide that are in purple. And the primary reason they're in purple is because they're associated with the Methanex 3 plant that you see on the other side. Until that one gets going again, these other two will not get going themselves. And so, but you can still see we have a lot out there that could cause a lot of nice growth in the Baton Rouge economy. In addition to that, there is the turnover activity that's going to start taking place, resume as we get into 21 and 22. This is a picture of a survey that was taken before the coronavirus hit by Connie Fave's group, the Greater Baton Rouge Industrial Alliance. And you can see that big old hump. You see how big that hump is? That's about 5,000 construction workers there, primarily being put to work because of the turnarounds. But now that has all been shifted. Everything has been shifted forward into 21 and 22. So this mountain has been added on top of another mountain going forward. So it would not be surprising to find the construction sector in 21 and 22 going from a worker shortage problem, a worker surplus problem that they have right now, to a worker shortage problem because of the need to do these turnarounds as we go into next year. Now, the other thing about which you may not be familiar that's going on here that's unusual for our area is the amount of money coming in flood mitigation. Federal money's coming in flood mitigation. Now, there are a number of these. There's 4 or 5 of these. One is $1.4 billion from the Corps to complete the Comate Diversion Canal, and another $255 million for clearing and widening, dredging waterways in this area. Most of that has not been spent. It is still underway. There's another $1.2 billion in HUD money for flood resiliency protection. Most of this, I think none of this has been spent yet, hasn't been released yet. They're going through the architecture of this at the governor's office, and that's still coming up. That's a lot of money to be spent over the next 5 years. Another $1.7 billion in HUD Restore money to help people recover from the flood. Only about half of this has been spent. There's been some rules and regulation issues that Congressman Graves is trying to sort out so we can get the rest of that money spent. And then there's what's called flood mitigation monies. This is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. When you find out the losses from a particular event, like our 2016 flood, what they do is they add on another, 7.5% to that to help build resiliency against the next particular event that may come along. And most of that is not spent yet as well. Now, for those of you from Livingston Parish who are watching us today, there's another $50 million in that parish to be spent on clearing and getting rid of snags and that sort of thing. And only about half of that has been spent. So here's a lot of money being spent in our economy to deal with this flood mitigation issue. Now, here's a really interesting point. I've given you 5 bullet points here about the type of spending. Once half of that money is spent, FEMA goes in and adjusts the flood maps, and everybody's flood insurance premium goes down. So that's one of the other nice things that will be good for the Baton Rouge economy. Now, and also in the construction side, excuse me, we have the road construction. We have about $2/3 of $1 billion in road lettings for our area, which is up from what it was last year. So even more money spent coming in from the state. You can see the 3 main projects here. If you come into Baton Rouge from going from west to east, you're going to love this first one, fixing the LA 415 to LA 1 It's going to bleed some traffic off of the entrance to the bridge. The Port Allen Bridge replacement, and then of course those of us who live in Baton Rouge know that if you come down I-10 heading towards downtown and you come to that split, you want to go to College Drive, you have to cross 4 lanes. There's going to be a flyover there that's going to be built with this money. About $360 million is going to be on the widening of the interstate. That's going to be interesting to go through that. That's supposed to start sometime this year. The voters approved about $400 million in EBR school construction. There's about $65 million occurring down in Ascension Parish for a coastal restoration project that they have going on down there. And then Move BR that you voters passed here is going to be spending about $46 million a year on roads and ditches and that sort of thing. So you can see the construction sector is really going to be big here. Now, I've shared with you a lot of statistics, and I have a lot of statistics about COVID, and I know some of you are very suspicious about COVID statistics, and maybe for good reasons, as indicated by this conversation. The wife says, "Did I get fat during quarantine?" Then the husband said, "You really weren't skinny to begin with." The time of his death was recorded at 11 o'clock on August the 31st, and the cause of death was COVID. So, hope you understand that. Now, by the way, let me mention to you about the casinos. We are not the biggest market, but there are, as you can see, nearly 1,700 people employed in our 3 casinos. What's kind of interesting is they are still under a 50% occupancy. Despite the fact they're under 50% occupancy, these 3 casinos had nearly 5% more in revenues in July than they did the previous July. I think matter of fact, if you look at all the gambling establishments around the state, despite the fact they were under a 50% limit on people, revenues were up 88%. I think that's what people are going to gamble, folks, and so that's very, very interesting there. In terms of other things other than construction, Amazon Logistics, as you know, is building a big distribution center in the Industrialplex. It's going to create 250 jobs. Many of those jobs already exist. I really hope that during the next 2 years, we're going to land this baby here, the Amazon Fulfillment Center. This would be way bigger than the one that you see above. You recall that there was some hope of using the old Katana Mall for this, but that got torpedoed. I hope that they can work that out so we can end up getting that. That would be huge for us. Florida Parish's Forest Services in St. Helena Parish is spending $90 million on a new specialty sawmill that's going to create 95 jobs. Click Here Digital is adding about 100 jobs and spending about 1.2 million on expansions. And one of the really nice gains for us this year is at Pennington with the Bariatric and Metabolic Institute that's coming in. You'll see it's 55 jobs, which is not a whole bunch of jobs, but look at the pay for these jobs. This is really, really a nice landing for us. Mike Wampole is going to spend $40 million on redoing the South Tower, Shea South Tower, and make that into condos. Lane Memorial Medical Center spending $50 million on a 4-story tower there. And then Hollywood Casino, excuse me for the call, Hollywood Casino is one of only 2 casinos in the state that's going to take advantage, thank you, that is going to take advantage of the new rule that you can move on land instead of being on a riverboat casino. So the other one is going to be over in the Lake Charles area. So it ought to be, they're going to spend about $25 million to do that. And plus the turnarounds that I mentioned before. We think the turnarounds are going to generate a lot of new jobs in the construction sector. What did I do, go backwards? I went back. Okay, now I'm sorry, let me get past this. You don't want to hear that joke again. What happened? I meant to click here. All right, the other place we expect some jobs to occur is a recovery area at our port. We have the 8th largest port in the nation here, Port of Baton Rouge. If you look at that last number there, that's for 2019. There was a big drop in activity at the port because of high water. And I don't know if you can see the ship, right in kind of the middle of the chart there, it shows you the number of ships dropped fairly dramatically during this time period. This particularly hit the the grain elevator area. When 2020 came along, this was double down because not only did you have high water, but you also had COVID. And if you kind of look at these three key players there, the Centerport Petroleum Terminal down 50%, Genesis Energy down 25 to 30, Dreyfus Grain Elevator down 20. What we expect to happen in 2021 and 22 is we're going to see this come back. And so this will be a nice job generator for the Baton Rouge area. Now, so what does all this mean for Baton Rouge? As you can see here, we have our forecast listed here. We think that Baton Rouge will be one of only 3 metropolitan areas in the state to recapture all the jobs that it lost during the coronavirus problem. As you can see here, we think we'll be, I think, the number 3 in percentage growth and number 2 in absolute growth. So this is going to be a good recovery for us, assuming, and really driven by the construction side that we mentioned earlier. If you look at the state as a whole, the picture is not nearly as pretty. We have the state gaining a lot of jobs back, but because of the drag that'll take place in the oil and gas extraction area of our state, we think by the end of 2022, the state will still be a little over 11,000 jobs below where they were when all this COVID started. Let me finish with this picture here. Some of you may be familiar with this. This is a picture of the Chinese word for crisis. You may not realize this, but the Chinese word for crisis is actually made up of 2 symbols. One of these symbols stands for danger, and the other symbol stands for opportunity. Recently, I was at a legislative task force meeting with ART, and a lady got up and asked, how are we going to adjust to all these changes that are taking place because of COVID? People working at home, or maybe people using takeout instead of eating in restaurants. How are we going to deal with that? And I wish I'd have thought about this at the time. My first thought now is, thank God Almighty we live in the United States of America. Because if you lived in a place like Venezuela, you lived in some country in South America or Africa, or many of the countries in Europe, you know what you do? You set up a governmental committee. And a governmental committee that looks at, this is an area where we think we ought to put more resources. This is an area where we should take resources away. The good news for you is you don't live in those countries. You live in the United States of America. The United States of America, we have this really neat mechanism that takes care of this problem automatically without anybody running it. And that's called the price mechanism. Because what's going to happen is there's a big increase in the demand for some other kind of activity in the economy, like delivering food. Their price will go up, and resources will automatically go to that area. If you have another area, like office space, where you think you're not going to need as many resources in the future, it's not doing well, the price per square foot is going to go down, and resources are going to leave that, and they're going to go to the other area. It's so neat. It is so neat. It is so automatic, and it is so efficient. That's going to do it in the best possible way. Thank God Almighty we live in the United States of America. Thank you for attending today. Thanks.
Thank you, Loren. I started out talking about resiliency, and I want to end talking about it. It's what we need. It's what we got to have. And so let's continue to push forward. One of the things I've learned over the last 25 years that what goes up goes down, and what goes down goes up. So we need to continue to innovate, be relentless, and keep pushing forward. Remember, we don't stay positive, right, because things are easy. We stay positive because things can be hard in life and in business. And so I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Loren, we want to thank you for also joining us. And I want to also thank our sponsors that make today possible. Fishman Haygood, Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge, LWCC, Iberia Bank, and WFB. If you registered for today's event or you're a business report insider, I want you to be on the lookout. This afternoon, you're going to get the e-edition of the 2021-2022 Louisiana Economic Outlook digital edition. It's an executive summary just for you. It'll have this information plus a little bit more that Loren's done. So be on the lookout. It's a free copy if you register today or if you're a business report insider. So have a great day, and thank you for joining us.